now. Okay. So, hello once again. This is our fifth live stream interview at Royal Collectibles. Right here. Royal Collectibles.
Yeah.
Located at 9601 Metropolitan Avenue in Queens, New York. We do these once a month. This is our fifth one. People can come down and see whoever our special guest star is.
Mm-hmm.
And this time we got a longtime friend, Russ Braun, whom, in case you may not know, is known for the Where Monsters Dwell from Marvel. And he also has, I'm just going to hold that up, his 2015 sketchbook.
Yep.
So, Russ,
Yeah.
I've known you for quite some time. Why don't you
Yeah.
tell the story of how we met?
How long is about 25 years? No, almost.
It feels like it. But
In like the early 90s, I was teaching a course at an unaccredited school, just a special effects workshop, right?
it had a name. It was called the New York Academy of Comic Book Arts and Fantasy Illustration.
Okay. Well, I was the teacher for comic book art and fantasy illustration, and but it was basically this guy had a special effects workshop, and kind of the stuff that you see on Face Off now. He did that,
He was ahead of his time.
Yeah, and people were there to learn that, but he also had a lot of people that wanted to learn about comic book storytelling and illustration. So I forget how we even connected with that, but so I did that class, and you were in. It was only I only did two semesters of it.
There
so.
only was two semesters.
And that was it. And so
was
I met
the
you and a
entire
couple other people,
school.
and still friends. Still know some of the people from it, and I think it was helpful to a few people. A few people got jobs doing mostly like coloring for Valiant and
Yep.
some lettering, and but yeah, it was nice to meet people who were enthusiastic about it, and actually even that early on in my career, being able to give something back and help people. Understand and tell stories. The stories were the most fun. So
I think the thing that I learned the most, besides the fact that I learned that I'm not going to be a comic artist, I learned that,
yeah,
was the behind the scenes and the business aspect of it.
yeah.
I learned a lot about that, and I was like,
Well-
wow, it's really cool.
But when you say not going to be a comic book artist, it's just you meant not going to be a comic book artist for the major two.
Correct, back at the time.
But I mean, that's the thing I try and get into people's heads, like when they show me stuff at the convention or whatever. It's just there's a different. If you're telling a story and you're enjoying the story, and it doesn't matter what the style is like. People think of the mainstream look. They want to make sure they
Correct.
super anatomy detail and all this other stuff. But I always ask. I said, who's the best comic book artist? Who's the best?
I can throw out Al Rio and Venice, my favorites.
Okay, well, see, that's favorites is one thing. There's no such thing as the best.
Because it's subjective.
So, totally subjective. So, some people are going to say David Mazzucchelli. Some people are going to say Bill Sienkiewicz. Some are going to say Alex Ross.
And at least one guy's going to say Russ Braun.
No. Jack Kirby. But the schools of thought are so different. But it's all just a way to move people to like a story through pictures. So you could still be a comic book artist right now if you wanted to.
Well,
You can draw.
I could draw barely, but I remember.
Stick figures can tell it.
That's true.
You can do a whole comic book with like an image of a triangle and a circle.
That's
You just do them in the right
extremely
angles.
true, yeah.
Little storytelling.
See, but what
shading.
what I meant to say was that as when I was a kid,
Right.
always wanted to draw Marvel, DC, always.
Right.
And I learned, hey, you're not gonna be able to do it, but you can still write a story.
Absolutely.
And that's how I became a comic book writer, and
Yeah.
my book was actually published. So
Yeah.
hooray!
I know.
So so that's what I learned.
So I did something good.
Yes, you did. That's what I was trying to get to. That it wasn't just about drawing; it
Yeah.
was about learning about the entire industry and the business.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be here talking to you right now if not
Right.
for that class.
Well, good.
Because I learned a lot, met people, and did the networking and carried
Yeah.
along.
Yeah. And it was fun to be able to. I mean, because I was learning about the business at the time too. I'd only been doing it for a couple of years when I did that class. So.
You had the Swamp Thing under your belt, and you
That's
had
right.
the Batman Venom,
Right.
which
And-
remind people what Batman Venom was.
Oh yeah, it was Legends of the Dark Knight, issues 16 through 20, and it was Batman taking drugs, Batman on steroids. First time it was supposed to be like a untold tale of the past, and what the whole series was set up to be. He failed to save this young girl, like one of his first big failures, and he wasn't strong enough to move a boulder, so he realized he had to do something to.
That's not. There we go. Okay, I was scared for a second.
So he found this. He had this drug called Venom, oddly enough, made by the girl who died's father. So that,
of course, as comics usually go.
And the long story short is, he became addicted to it, and that's the drug that created Bane. So a few years later, Nightfall and all that wouldn't have been possible without my.
That's right. Your
brilliant work on
expertise artwork right there.
Batman Venom. Yeah, written by Denny O'Neil, and it's just, and again, it kind of harkens back to what I'm working on now. Is that it's kind of a throwback pulp adventure type of thing. You know, even there's Batman fighting a shark with his shirt off, kind of stuff. It was fun. It was just a lot of fun, and I enjoyed and learned more than anything else working in that book from Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, I was telling you before.
Right.
And the inker extraordinaire. It's crazy just to say inker. He pretty much taught me how to do comics from working with him on that book.
Well, as we were talking before we started recording, it was called an embellisher.
Yeah.
Also.
Sure. Yeah, just a fancy way to say, embellishment doesn't mean anything different, but it should.
He took whatever and he enhanced it, as opposed to just. I said, what was it? The famous line is a tracer. You know, he's not a tracer.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, an inker can take what you give him and just trace it verbatim, and that's his job. That's what that's fine. But if you get a good inker that you work with a lot, you can enhance what you do and see things that you left out or fix things that you did wrong. I mean, a lot of things I would leave for myself in the ink. I don't ink at all anymore. I pencil really tight, and I scan it in the computer and darken it up. And literally, I'm not even like doing ink lines on a tablet. I'm just making my pencil lines dark enough to reproduce. And my colorist from Fairest and Fables, Andrew Dahlhaus, I met him for the first time at the New York Comic Convention, and he had no idea that I didn't ink. He still thought it was. I mean, he colors it, and so he sees the files, and he thought for sure I was inking it. So going dark again.
Yeah, why is it doing that? Maybe it's a
Must
plug
be
thing.
me.
All right, so since we're live, I'm gonna have to check something.
Okay.
You're gonna have to vamp for a few minutes.
Vamp?
Yes, vamp. They can still hear me. But
I know. I'll cover this. I did want to say, and Royal Collectibles, really great store. But no offense to Mets fans, it's we say Mets Collectibles for this week or two.
That might be it. That might be it.
We got it?
I think that's what it is. All right. So, young Russ.
Yeah.
Russ. Did you want to draw comics when you were?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was like my ultimate goal as a kid was just what you said. I wanted to draw Marvel comics. I wanted to draw Spider-Man, and that's changed. When it was Spider-Man, it's too intimidating. It's easier to draw the side characters that you don't care as much about. But yeah, that was the goal. And then, so I just drew all the time from when I was like 5 years old, even earlier, and watched all the different TV shows. It was before I even had comics. I had the cartoons. It was the Ralph Bakshi Spider-Man cartoon, and the Mighty Marvel, Rainbow Bridge of Asgard song, and the Batman TV show and stuff like that. So, but then I got into the comics themselves and started drawing like my own comic book stories. I would do like a whole comic book on one sketchbook page, little tiny postage stamp panels. And but when I got to be in high school, I started to think about college for art. And when I finally got to college, I said, well, I've got to put away all this silly comic book stuff and do proper art, be like a real fine artist. And of course, that's the time and era when things like Watchmen were coming out, and all those great, incredible Bill Sienkiewicz work, Elektra Assassin, and then Mazzucchelli Batman, and Frank Miller Batman. And so I'm seeing all this stuff was being handed to me by my different friends in college, and I said, oh yeah, I guess this is really art. So it helped me make my decision, and I said, listen, I love comics. There's no reason to look down on it, they're doing incredible artwork right now with it. So maybe I can try and do that too. So I stuck with it.
Do you find that the amount of money that it's making sort of justifies the comics now? Because back in the day, if I remember, it was like, oh, it's a comic book. Oh, how dare
No,
comics?
I think it has nothing to do with the money. I mean, just for me, it was the artwork. I mean, it's literally, comics have always been like looked down on as an art form to a degree. Even when they win Pulitzer prizes, and they do now.
They do.
But it was always thought of as like for kids. But none of those books I mentioned that really inspired me. The one that really got me was Miracle Man, the Alan Moore.
Oh yeah. Okay.
When that was coming, I saw the John Totleben stuff, and it was a really dark take on superheroes. But it was just back then it was unique. It was like you never thought of superheroes that way, and so it had nothing to do with money. And that was like a really not really a great selling book or anything like that. And again, the cover prices are different now, but even now it's just having a place to put a great story and a way to tell. Basically, you can do a blockbuster movie for a very independent budget. It's like you're drawing stuff that would cost a whole special effects team 3 months of their life and millions of dollars, and you're supposed to be able to do that in a day or two. So that's my goal and what I do. That's why I keep doing comics. I still just love doing it.
Well, you bring up an interesting point about being able to do it in a day. One of the things that I learned was that there's a day rate, a page rate,
Sure.
that you have to have it be able to churn out stuff on a consistent basis. Is that something that you learned as you were doing it, or something that you had known beforehand? Oh, I have to do a page a day or 2 pages a day to actually make it a living on this.
That was the biggest part of the business, actually. Well, it's kind of how I got started. I was fast when I started, but I didn't know storytelling. So I was working, the first project I ever worked on, Ford Fairlane. Carmine Infantino did layouts, and I did pencils over his. We had, there was a situation where the artist that was drawing the book had another commitment and had to leave the book. We had a very tight deadline. Then we had like 2 weeks to do, I think it was either 25 or 32 pages. And Carmine had no problem, super pro, nicest guy in the world to me. And I just drew over that, and the editor, Joe Orlando, was, he's just smiling. I was like, oh, it doesn't even look like Carmine, it looks like you. So I was like, oh, thanks. But that was like, they basically said, we need this to be done in 2 weeks. Can you do it? And I said, I'll give it a try. And we did it. So I had 2 inkers working on it. Now you see that happens all the time. It's just like, because things are scheduled way in advance. And it was the same thing back then, I guess, but it seems like it's more now. Like, you'll see like multiple names on the book. But I remember getting a Marvel comic in the 70s, and it would be like inked by the whole crew, like the bullpen, But that was like a deadline book. So, but yeah, that the Ford Fairlane stuff, we cranked out like 2 full issues in such a short amount of time. But there are going to be times when you can't do it. You don't have the impetus. You don't know. You get caught on it. You get stuck on a page. So.
Or sometimes you get sick. Things, real life comes in.
I've
It's
had
a
that
job.
happen.
It's a job. You get sick, but
I ended up
you
with,
have to have it.
Yeah, I ended up with pneumonia when I was trying to finish up an arc of the boys, and I managed to get it done, and then fell off the stool and drove myself to the hospital. But yeah, I mean, it is a business, but it's a business I chose to be in because I love doing it, and I mean, obviously you like being paid, but there's a lot of people that you do it out of the love of it, and there's bigger money to make out there in the art fields, I guess. I mean, different movie stuff, but I've always liked doing what I'm doing. It's not that I wouldn't do it if I had it available, but I like comics. So
It's been a theme, talking to other artists, doing the radio show that we do, about doing it for the love.
yeah,
And we also talk about professionalism and the deadlines.
yeah,
We actually talked about this at the New York Comic Con a couple of weeks ago, about how comics has been around for a long time, and back in the days, in this heyday in the 90s when everything was going crazy, there was a lot of missed deadlines and missed books that came out.
yeah.
and now it's kind of still happening, not as much because you had to fill in, but
Yeah.
people are waiting for this book to come out. Should it still be this way? Because
Yeah.
it's a $1 billion industry. They're making money. The companies are making money
Sure.
left and right.
Sure.
Should they have it in set that things should be able to come out on a regular basis? There shouldn't be a missing, like a TV show.
Obviously,
The
yeah.
TV show comes out. There's one that comes out. There's one that comes out. They can't
Yeah.
just not have a show.
Well, they can put a rerun in, you know? I mean, the
So-
only one I can think of that does that maybe is like South Park. Every now and then South Park won't meet their deadline. I mean, they
The
do it on a
turnaround is only
really-
a week.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's amazing, but that they've kept it up. But yeah, they've put in. I remember one time they did put a repeat on.
Right, because they couldn't.
But you know, yeah. But I get what you're saying. But at the same time, it's like you buy a comic because you like either the story or the writer or the artist, hopefully all of them together, all three of those things. So if you're reading a comic and third issue in, the art is completely changed. That can be really distracting. It would throw me out of a comic myself. So I've been a fill-in guy in a lot of books. That's kind of how I started. You know, after the Batman stuff was, you know, I got to do that. But then I made my bones in the industry doing fill-ins for Vertigo. You know, but you tried to do your own thing, but you tried to make sure that it wasn't jarring to the style of the book. So, and the big main fill-in that I did, then I came back and did Jack of Fables. I was also I did some Fable stuff, and when I ended up on The Boys, it was that the styles between myself and Derek Robertson weren't so disparate that it would shock the readers, and they needed some consistency because deadlines were you know, crazy. Had a lot of other commitments to do different things, and the book wasn't coming out on time, and it was killing the book. I mean, like you said, if a book doesn't come out, you lose track of people. I mean, it's a short attention span. So if I'm reading a monthly book and then 1 month it's not there, and then it's not there for the next month either, you lose track of the story. You know, no one wants to have to go back and reread everything when the next issue comes out. So you want it fresh. You're like, I'm owed this comic on that Wednesday of that month, and I know it's going to be. And I feel that way too. So anything I can do to make that happen is what I do. So it's made me something of a career. You know, especially like on The Boys, it ended up being like a fill-in that lasted for 2 years, or more. But it was like 24 issues in a row, and we were like on a deadline and not everybody can do it. And I don't know if I could do it again now. I hope I could, but we had one point where we did 16 in a row with no fill-in, no break, and it was month to month. We were already behind, so I literally had to turn out a comic every 3 weeks, and had to be lettered and colored, and it's a chain of people. It's not a huge industry as far as like it's not a giant factory, you know.
But it's a
thankfully.
factory in and of itself. There is one guy to write.
There's
this,
an
one guy
assembly
to-
line.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, you wish, I'm writing and drawing it myself, and you know that was the dream growing up. But you realize that if I'm late on this, then I'm hurting the inker, and the colorist, and the letterer, and the production team. And you know, I mean, I know I'm not really going to worry too much about, you know, Marvel and DC, except that they're the ones that are giving you the work in the first place. So you want to do right by them too. But mainly, I'm doing it for the guys in the trenches, like our little guys, our little team of artists that are trying to make a living. You know, so if I screw up and don't get my pages in time, then I'm forcing the next guy down the line to rush and put out work that he's not proud of and that I'm not proud of either. So, you know, I do everything I can to make sure deadlines are king. That's like the main deal for me.
So, a lot of artists are freelancers,
Mhm.
and they start off drawing their own little thing.
Yeah.
How would you recommend them to get into that type of deadline mentality without having someone on top of them?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's important. You want to produce, but the whole idea about you don't want to give yourself deadlines, I don't think. But if you're into what you're doing, it should be kind of one of those things where it's just like, I've got it, I've hit a flow, and you just keep going. So if you're doing your own story, you have the luxury of not having that deadline hanging over you. But yeah, you do have to make sure that you get up and do some drawing every day. You have to do some work on that book. It's just like writers, you hear like a novelist have to wake up and say, even if I'm not motivated,
Right.
I make sure I write something, even if I know I'm going to throw it out because I don't have the idea. I write something because it's better than nothing. It's just like the fear of the white page, we used to call it. I'm talking to Steve Dillon about that. Like I used to see that page, and like I said, when I used to draw right on the page and never do any like layouts ahead of time, I would have like it's got to be the fresh, most spontaneous thing I can do. Otherwise, it won't have the life in it that I want. But then you stare at a white page in fear because you're like, I gotta get it right. Then you do the first panel. You have it sort of planned out. You've done thumbnails, but first panel comes out good. You're like, oh, good. This is what I wanted. But then each panel along, you're like, now if I screw up the last panel, I ruin the whole page. But you can't do it out of fear. But I would say if you're doing your own story and you don't have a deadline set, make sure that you always make time for yourself, like to do your artwork, to do your drawing. Have like, if you're a morning person, start in the morning. If you're a night person, do it at night. But you have to make sure that you have set aside actual time to do your job, because even if it's not a job that's paying you, it's your job. If this is what you want to do with your life, do it. Don't talk about it. Don't say, oh, I would if I could. But like I said, do a really bad drawing in the morning and then go, that really is terrible, but it warms you up for the next drawing. So you get them next time. Just get them next time. It's like, okay, I don't like the way that came out, but I like the way that expression is, or like the angle of that head, So I'll remember it for next time, and I'll do better next time. So that kind of thing.
A lot of artists can be perfectionists.
Yeah.
The biggest one I would just throw out there is George Lucas, how his movie is never finished and he keeps on going back and going over. When you're drawing something, have you ever gotten to a point, and I'm sure you have, where you're drawing something that's like, it's not good enough, it's not good enough, you keep on going at it. At what point do you decide, I gotta stop and I gotta move on?
Deadlines help with that. But yeah, it's that was what kind of did me in early in my career, was like I had some success, and then I didn't feel like I was growing fast enough. Like, would look at it and go, that's not good enough, it's just like not what I wanted. Yeah, so it is. It's definitely something that can totally kill you. But I also realize it's one panel on one page of one comic book of one character's lifetime story arc from 1939 on. Sometimes,
Right.
But so you have to let things go to the degree and say, get them next time. Good enough for government work. But that's not. It's not what you want. It's not a phrase that you should ever use in your work. But you do have to do the next page. I mean, I could spend the rest of my life drawing one panel. Could make it the most perfect panel in the history of comics. I really could. No.
And then that's it.
It's the Mona Lisa of
21
comic
pages
book
of
panels.
blank pages and one panel.
Exactly. So yeah, I could spend a couple of years doing that. Make it, stipple every little dot, and but that doesn't get it done for anybody. It doesn't get me where I want to be. It doesn't get any readers where they want to be, because they want to have, like you said, a comic book every month to look at. So, not that you shouldn't take your time. I mean, that's the thing about deadlines too, is that there's some books where I look at them and I go, oh my God, he did this, the artwork. I'm like, how could he have gotten that done in the time that it took him to do? And you think, no, that, you look at like Killing Joke, Brian Bolland or something like that.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, he took his time doing that. And it was worth the effort. It's just, so unless you're on a monthly deadline, you don't have to think about it that way. But something does have to get produced, because if you just if I have like 3 months to do a book, you find ways to procrastinate on it. I prefer, to a degree, to have that deadline looming so that I feel the pressure to get it done. And the pressure actually, you sometimes the good stuff comes out under pressure. I would have hemmed and hawed a lot longer about that panel, that pose. But I said, got to get this done. I need to get these 2 pages done today, or I'm never going to make the deadline a week from now. So it's like, oh, look, I found it. Good, because it forced me to push it, and I got it done. Sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not. But
Well, I know you've done the drink and draws, right? Is that what they're called? The drink and
no,
draws?
the Dare to Draw.
Dare to draws.
Yeah.
And you're a judge on that.
Yeah,
sometimes,
I did.
right?
Yeah, I did it's like a mentoring session, and they did, now it's set up as to be like a TV show.
Oh, okay.
But they did it like just it's a great organization that just these guys do, and I just do it because it's a chance to give something back into, like, just like the course I did with you. It's the same thing. I've seen a lot of people show me some great stuff, really inspiring, and so yeah, they do a drawing contest, and there are prizes, and I wasn't prepared to talk about. I would have all the information about them, but look them up. They're called Dare to Draw, DARE 2 Draw.
The number 2.
And yeah, and it's on YouTube. You can find that stuff. And I did an episode. Phil Jimenez does work with them. A bunch of different artists are affiliated with them. So, but yeah, I recommend checking them out. And it's in Manhattan. Usually, you can find when they do events. But yeah, I had a great time doing that stuff.
So we're almost out of time already.
Okay.
So the only thing, it is almost a half an hour. We got like 5 more minutes to go. So what are you working on right now? What places you want to promote? Do you want to have websites you have to promote?
No, nothing. I just finished Where Monsters Dwell. It just came out today, the last one. So
this is actually,
we don't have the last one because it's sold out.
This is the number one, but
that's number one. That's the alternate cover too by Alex Malev, which is beautiful, and Frank Cho did the regular covers, which are awesome. But yeah, just finished that, and I have a project coming up for next year. Can't talk about it. Hate saying that, but
you're going to be at any signings? You're going to be at any conventions?
Nothing lined up. No, I'm actually going to do some preliminary work for this next book for Marvel, and it's going to be something brand new. And after that, yeah, I only do New York conventions really. So if there's a special edition, I'll probably be at that in the spring. But no, just look out. Facebook is the place to find me. I do my Facebook Image of the Day thing. This Friday we've got Frankenstein Friday event. That's right. For whatever reason, every Friday I started drawing a picture of Frankenstein and putting it up every morning. So it started as a joke, like a throwback Thursday. I did a drawing of Frankenstein on a Friday. So I said, "What? That's not a thing?" And people were like, "Oh, it should be a thing." And so every Friday since then, for over a year now, I do some version of Frankenstein and put it up on Friday. And so this week we're doing a Frankenstein Friday Facebook event, and so here's some of them now. So yeah, I did like I started with Boris Karloff, then there's like Christopher Lee, and then I went to Frankenberry and made a whole story around Frankenberry and Count Chocula and a whole bunch of them. So hopefully they'll appreciate it if they look at that. But yeah, so if you want to join in, just find it on Facebook and put up an image of Frankenstein of your own this Friday from 9 in the morning till midnight.
Is there a hashtag or thing that we're supposed
No,
to do?
I'm not on Twitter yet. I'm being forced into it, so eventually I'll be annoying you with that stuff. But
Social
yeah,
media.
just Facebook, which I'm really happy I did. It took me a while to get involved in that, but it's been a great way to stay in touch with people and to inspire people too, in a weird sort of way. It's like the Image of the Day thing is like, everyone's like, wow, you've been doing that every day for over 2 years now. And sometimes it's not the greatest thing in the world. It's just a little scribble. Sometimes it's an old thing I did already, but sometimes it's something brand new I thought of at night after I was drawing all day on a comic book, and I said, oh, I'd like to do a drawing of this that wasn't something in the comic, and I put it up in the morning. So check it out if you find me on Facebook.
All right, so final question is, since you've done Marvel and you've done DC, and as always the big fight is between what's better, Marvel or DC, you've worked for both of them.
Yeah.
Which is better working for them? Is it make a difference
work
if you're
for?
doing
No.
Batman, or you're doing Spider-Man, you're doing Superman?
100% honest. There's no difference. I mean, I did most of my work for DC. I'm working for Marvel now. It's more about the projects and the people you work with, and there are different things, little things. We were joking about it before. Yeah, okay. Everyone knows Marvel. You don't get your comp copies of your comics very quickly. DC sends you more, and right as soon as they're done. But it's such a minor little point. It's just the whole industry right now. You don't really know exactly where it's going. I'm just happy that they still have comic books, and that there's still jobs out there that are for projects that are really great. So I've been lucky with the writers I work with and the projects I work with and worked on, and from different. It's hard to take the difference between from DC working on the Fables projects. That's like a family, the Vertigo family for me, and they've always welcomed me back to do work. And now Marvel's kind of like working with Garth Ennis on a Marvel project, which is just a lot of fun. And, Should throw Dynamite in there too, because I do a lot of work for Dynamite, and they've always been great to work for. I've never had a bad experience with any comic company.
That's good.
So lucky me. I mean, honestly, it's been great. I feel really fortunate.
What character would you like to draw and you haven't done so? What's your dream job?
I probably have to draw Spider-Man someday. That was my inspiration growing up. He was my hero. So yeah, kid growing up in Queens,
It's
Spider-Man.
funny that you mentioned that, because
Oh,
look at
yeah.
that. I can.
right.
This is not even planned. We can just segue
You're
into
right.
this.
You're right. I forgot about that
So
too.
we have this little thing that we like to do. This is an original sketch cover by Russ Braun. He actually did Spider-Man. This is going to be a little contest for people watching the video on our YouTube page. Anybody who comments will be entered in to win it. And this will be on display at Royal Collectibles. So you can, Royal Collectibles? Royal Collectibles?
Mets Collectibles.
Mets Collectibles. They
Sorry,
actually
guys,
do
I'm
have
just
a sporting a store next door
Yeah.
that they do sporting stuff on the same block.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you comment on it, any comment, good or bad, we'll take whatever comment, put your name in.
Oh yeah,
Hey!
please.
And we'll add it on there. Is there anything else you want to mention before I do my little sign off?
No, good. It's nice
Any
talking to you.
advice for people out there?
Hey, if you love it, do it. That's all. I mean, really, you can get it out there so much more easily now with the internet. Make a comic, do a panel every day, and put it on Facebook, and you've got your own comic book. So maybe someone will see it and love it, and it can go somewhere. If it's just on Facebook, it's still there. It's still out there. It's like showing everybody your sketchbook, So.
All right, so
But enjoy.
that about does it. So like I said, make sure this contest will be good for about a month. So today is the 28th. So November
Is it?
28th.
Yeah.
Yeah, November 28th will be the deadline for you guys, because anybody who puts a comment afterwards will not be entered.
Sure.
We'll announce it on our Facebook page, which is It Came From the Radio. You can always, like I said, check it out on Royal Mets Collectibles.
No, it's
Royal Collectibles in New York City. You can actually see it up on display. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. It Came From the Radio. This will be up on our YouTube page. It Came From the Radio. You can't figure it out. It's It Came From the Radio.
Right.
And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, Russ. I really appreciate it. You actually have done a lot for us, the show, without even realizing it.
Cool.
All these years. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time. All right, so.